So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished delegates, esteemed speakers, and honorable participants. It is my great honor and pleasure to welcome you at our seminar on Canada Food Safety Risk Assessment, Import Process and Recall System, Lessons for Thailand, co-organized by National Bureau of Agriculture Commodity and Food Standards and Indo-Pacific Agriculture and Agri-Food Office, IPAAO, with supported by the Embassy of Canada to Thailand, here today at Nawatakam 3, Nawatakam Building, Office of Agricultural Economics, Bangkok, Thailand. Okay. Good morning. Can you hear me well? Is that okay?
Yeah, I can hear you well.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, now we are ready to proceed to the section 1. Okay, Canada's risk assessment model, including ERA, IRA, VTPA. In this session, it is my great honor to introduce our two distinguished keynote speakers who are live from Ottawa, Canada. So now over there is really close to midnight, really like at nighttime already. So first of all, the Dr. Romina Sanabria, right? Dr. Sanabria is a specialist in food safety and risk analysis with over 20 years of experience in this field. And since 2013, Dr. Sanabria joined the team responsibility for developing a risk assessment algorithm for food established in CFIA. And also is now the National Program Manager for the Establishment-Based Risk Assessment Model for Food Establishment, the Importer Risk Assessment Model, and the Work Tasking Logic Model, two that are integrated into the CFIA's practical work planning to guide the allocation of inspection resources and oversight activity. And also the second one is a Dr. Elizabeth Mantle. She is a science leader, food establishment risk assessment of the CFIA. So Dr. Mantle is the food scientist whose work is centered on food safety and risk analysis, and she has over 10 years of experience in this field. From 2018 until 2019, she held a MyTech Science policy and postdoctoral fellowship position with the CFIA's Establishment-Based Risk Assessment, or ERA team. And now she is currently a science leader in the team. So ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Dr. Romania Sanabria Isagire and Dr. Elizabeth Mantius. They are from online.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you very well. Good.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. And thank you for the opportunity to present today on the work that we have been doing for the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. Today, I will be presented with my colleague, Elizabeth Mantil. And I'm just going to share my screen right now.
Yes, please.
And
yeah,
presentation
we can
mode.
See your presentation now.
Okay, perfect.
Perfect, thank you.
So the objective for today is to present you with an overview of the Canadian Food Inspection Agency establishment-based risk assessment model for food establishment. And we will focus also on the inclusion of voluntary third-party assurance program and how it is used by CFIA, specifically within the risk assessment models. And then my colleague Elizabeth will present you the integration of the models for informing risk decision making. And she will also cover the benefits and considerations with Canada's approach. So when we refer to the risk assessment models at the CFIA, we're talking about mathematical algorithms. We currently have two. One is what we call establishment-based risk assessment, which basically assess the food safety risk of domestic establishments. The second one is the importer risk assessment model, and that is a similar model but assess the risk of food importers. So both are looking at evaluating the risk that establishments or importers represent for Canadian consumers, following a scientific and transparent approach. The application of these models allow us to compare within and across the food sector, even for manufacturers that are producing beef products or dairy products or egg products. We use the same tool and we utilize the same units so we can compare and then allocate our inspection resources based on that level of risk. This with the goal of treating similar levels of risk with a similar level of rigor. Following the development of those risk assessment models, we also work on a risk management model that we call the Work Tasking Logic Model, or WTLM. So this tool basically automates the inspection planning according to the risk results and program direction. And why we have, or why our agency decide to work on the development and implementation of these models is because we were looking to have as for a systematic and scientific risk-based approach to focus our inspection resources where they are most needed across all food commodities and taking into consideration the food safety risk. How those models assess the risk, I will explain that in the next few slides, but basically the models evaluate the level of risk of an establishment or an importer by considering the risks that are associated with a specific commodity. For example, whether it's dairy or beef or fish, but also the type of products that the establishment is producing. For example, within the dairy sector, the establishment may be doing cheese or milk or ice cream or butter, and each of those have a different level of food safety risks. So our models add that level of granularity. The models also consider the type of operation that the establishment conducts, the manufacturing process, as well as mitigation strategies that have been implemented by the industry to try to reduce their food safety risk, and the compliance, the historical compliance of the establishment or the importer. More importantly, how we're using these models, the outputs of these models are informing our risk management decisions. So as Elizabeth will explain you more in details and with examples, the models are used to inform the inspection frequency. So how frequent an establishment or importer is inspected. But also it informs other oversight activities like product sampling. Also, it helps us identify what should be inspected in terms of high-risk establishments, but we have seen its application on helping us identify establishments that are at risk for other pathogens, for example, high pathogenic avian influenza, because we know what establishments is dealing with with birds or chickens as inputs for their processing activities. So we quickly identified them, and we took a proactive approach trying to inform them of the risk of high pathogenic avian influenza. So we can see that our models are being used in different ways. As well, our colleagues in the operations department, that is, they are in charge of all the inspectors that visit the facilities. They use our models to inform where to focus their training. So, for example, if a specific region or area deals with the majority of establishments doing ready-to-eat foods, then there is a risk for listeria associated with this type of products. Then operations will decide that the group of inspectors that is responsible for those establishments needs to be on the priority list to receive training on the control for listeria, for example. So for the next few slides, I would like to explain you how we develop these models and what is the structure of these models. So when we develop these models, we follow a sequence of steps that are explained in this arrow. We did a benchmarking with other countries that have worked in similar risk assessment models to learn on their experience and also apply the lessons learned while we were developing our own model. Then we work on the identification, the selection and quantification of risk factors. We work on developing the algorithm. We tested the model through pilot projects, and also we validated it through performance assessment exercise. And then we proceed to the data collection and implementation following a commodity by commodity approach. What you also see on this slide is some key points that we wanted to highlight that were important for a successful model development. So when we start, we work with a scientific advisory committee that is a group of experts from universities across Canada, and they help us with the validation, with keeping the model up to date, with providing some literature reviews to identify those risk factors that are more critical for food safety. And they also serve as ambassadors with the rest of the academia, but also at the international level, because they were aware of the model, how it was being developed. So they were our speakers in the outside world of the agency. We also work with a consultant that was specialized in risk modeling. And whenever there was data gaps because there was not sufficient evidence or scientific literature available to develop our model, we proceed with expert elicitation or consultations to fill those data gaps. And we try to be transparent as much as possible. And for that, we publish all the steps of the model development in peer-reviewed journals. What we noted when we did the benchmarking exercise with other countries is that many countries, or none of them actually, had validated their model. And this was critical for us. So models, there is no gold standard on risk assessment, but we try to make sure that the results or the outputs generated by the model were solid. So that's why we did the performance assessment just to make sure that the model provide us with solid outputs to inform our decision making. And especially for the implementation of the model, we had a very solid plan for change management, for culture change, just to make sure a successful implementation of this tool. Sorry. So after developing or after consulting with the different experts, identifying the risk factors that are the most important in terms of food safety, and also estimating the impact of each of those risk factors towards food safety, we came up with the model structure that is simplified in this graphic. And you can see the three groups of risk factors that compose the model. As I was referring previously, we have inherent risk factors that are those characteristics of the establishments that relate to the type of operations, the type of commodity, type of product, the volume of the product that is manufactured, as well as processing steps, and whether the product is directly distributed to vulnerable populations. We also have a second group of risk factors, which are the mitigation factors. Examples of those includes whether the establishment is doing additional processing, to reduce food safety risk, of course, the food safety certifications, third-party audits, a control of incoming materials, quality assurance personnel, and sampling plan. And the last group of risk factors is the compliance factors. So under this group, we include the inspection results and impact assessment of the establishments, for example, for the past 3 years, the history of enforcement actions, history of recalls for the past 5 years, and the history of food safety confirmed complaints. So in order to fit the model algorithm, we have two main sources of data. The first one is what we call the additional establishment information, which is an online questionnaire that industry needs to complete, and where they provide information about their inherent and their mitigation factors. So this questionnaire is completed whenever an establishment is applying for a license or is amending or renewing their license. So right now it's mandatory. And then for the second source of data, we have inspection data that is stored in our own databases, from which we extract the information to feed the compliance information of a particular establishment. So all these pieces of data are combined into the algorithm, and then we get the ERA risk results or the level of risk. So this model covers all food commodities. Right now it's implemented in all food commodities, including dairy, honey, eggs, maple, fish, processed fruits and vegetables, meat, manufactured foods, and fresh fruits and vegetables. So to give you an idea of the type of risk results that are produced by the model, the next slide shows you a graphic to explain how the model assigns the establishment a food safety risk level. So on the previous slide, you saw that there are three main groups of risk factors. When we produce results, we also produce three sets of risk results that are cumulative. So on the first graph is the inherent risk, which consider all the information related to the inherent risk factors. After that, the model pulls the information on the mitigation factors, and what we obtain is the mitigated risk, which is the second or green bar in the middle. Finally, once we pull the compliance information, meaning how well an establishment is being complying with regulatory requirements, then we will obtain the final risk result, which is in brown color. Also, another characteristic of our model is that we can have additional information that can help our inspectors to prioritize establishments that have similar risk categories. As you can imagine, we have a big number of establishments to inspect, over 8,000 establishments. So some establishments may fall under the same risk category. So for example, in this slide, you can see establishment 1 and 2, that the final risk result, which is the reddish or brownish bar, is very similar at the end. If we see establishment 1 in particular, we notice that they start with a high inherent risk. Maybe they are producing a high-risk product, a very large volume of that product. And then we note that they implement certain mitigation measures, so their mitigated risk is reduced, and they have good compliance, so no issues. They are all satisfactory in terms of their inspection controls. And we have the final risk result about $80. If we see that the establishment number 2, we see a different story. In this case, it may be an establishment that is producing a lower volume of product, lower risk associated with it. So the inherent risk is lower, and then they have some mitigation measures in place, so their mitigated risk gets reduced. However, when we see their compliance information, we can see that the risk is increased. So compared to establishment 1, establishment number 2 has low control because they having a lot of compliance issues. In contrast, establishment 1, they are controlling well the risk, and they don't have any issue of compliance, so they are under good control. So this is what we call the food safety control concept, the difference between the inherent and the final risk result. And it helps an inspector decide whether two establishments fall in the same risk category. In this case, they will prioritize establishment number 2 because they have a low control in the processing activities. For the next few slides, I would like to touch base on the inclusion of the voluntary third-party assurance programs in the model. So one way that the CFIA has changed is by considering the food business operator adherence to voluntary third-party assurance programs. So it is important to remember that the voluntary third-party assurance programs, or VTPA, are just one of many factors that our agency considers for the risk-informed oversight. They do play an important role in helping industry achieve a food safety regulatory objective. However, we are clear on the messaging that the adherence to BTPA programs does not replace the work that is conducted by the CFIA because we are the enforcement authority. However, it may complement food safety regulatory oversight. In the case of the ERA food model, we have under the mitigation factors, we consider food safety certifications and third-party audits. So this information is included in the calculation of the establishment risk result, and it can help reduce the risk. For example, if an establishment has a HACCP certification, it may reduce the risk by 3.5 times. You may wonder where this 3.5 comes from. This is the weight that was estimated by experts. So we asked them to tell us if an establishment has a HACCP certification, how much the food safety risk can be reduced compared to another establishment that doesn't have any certification. And this is a study that we conduct in 2014, has been published in a peer review article, and we can share those if you are interested in that. So as mentioned in the previous slide, we have two types of BTPA considered. So the first one is the food safety certification schemes that include whether an establishment is certified to HACCP or whether it has other international certification schemes implemented, like those from the GFSI or the Global Food Safety Initiative, or ISO, the International Organization for Standardization. Each of those will have different weights towards the risk result of an establishment. But we also consider third-party audits, and in this case, we refer to the use of a private or independent service provider, organization, or company that verifies that a regulated party adheres to a food safety standard. So it's a client audit. And in this case, this type of audit is not related to the certification process or certification renewal, neither related to the CFIA inspection activities. So with that introduction, I'm gonna pass the post to my colleague Elizabeth, who is gonna cover the integration of the model into our risk-informed oversight. Go ahead,
Thanks,
Elizabeth.
Romina.
Oh, sorry, do you want me to move the slides, or?
Yeah, you can go ahead. Yeah, since you're
Okay.
already sharing your screen.
Go ahead.
Perfect. So how's this information used by the agency? So risk-informed oversight occurs in a cyclic continuous basis. So first we have that establishment-specific information that we're getting from industry and from CFIA internal data systems. And we're using that within our automated IT solution to run the algorithm and create the risk profiles for each establishment. And within those profiles, we have the risk result, the risk category, and that food safety control, those pieces of information that Romina was just talking about. And then as a third step, those risk results are integrated into the animal program direction, which defines the inspection parameters. So for example, the inspection frequency, and it provides direction to our inspectors. And then this information is used to deliver the inspection, so considering the type of product, the volume, and other key risk factors there. And the inspectors will review that information provided by industry, and they'll enter the new compliance data as they collect it through their regular inspections. And then this in turn will again start that cyclic process. Romina, if you want to go to the next slide. So here we have the risk results for establishments from November. They're distributed throughout each of the ERA food risk categories, 1 to 7. And you can see that some establishments that are associated with lower risk commodities, such as maple and honey, tend to sit in the lower risk categories. So for example, categories 5, 6, and 7, while others, which are associated with higher risk commodities, are more evenly distributed across all commodities. For example, with the meat and poultry, slaughtering and processing establishments, you see a selection of them within the higher risk categories, and then some that sit in that lower risk categories there as well. Next slide. So here's an example of inspection frequencies based on the ERA food risk category. So for an example, if we have an establishment sitting within an ERA risk category 1, they would receive a full preventive control inspection, which consists of a minimum of 16 preventive control plan sub-elements every year, versus an establishment sitting in a category 3 may receive a full PCI every 2 years. And when we're talking about sub-elements here, those would be things such as incoming inputs, product formulation, specification processing, looking at their product control, sanitation, and traceability control, just as some examples. I do want to note that additional information is also considered when defining the frequency of inspection. The ERA food risk result is one piece of information that's considered along with other factors to help determine the inspection frequencies for the establishments. Next slide. So an important factor in the application of the ERA food model has been transparent communication. And with that in mind, developing the model, we also developed the ERA establishment risk profile. This profile consolidates the establishment risk information within a few pages, and it helps to describe the establishment-specific risk factor information that's contributing to the establishment's risk result. And it also identifies areas where mitigation approaches and compliance may be improved. And these profiles are available to industry. They can access them through their inspector. They can ask their inspector questions about them, and then they can also reach out directly to our ERA team if they have questions related to their risk profiles. Next slide. And we also have what we call a national risk profile. And this provides an overview for each sector. It provides a summary of the number of establishments that fall within each risk category. It also provides an overview of the inherent risk factors. So for example, any additional processing steps that are happening within the establishments in those sectors, how many are performing those activities, how many establishments are distributing specific subproducts within that commodity, and the volume, the domestic volumes associated with that. And then next slide. If you want to go to the next slide, there we go, perfect. It also provides an overview of the mitigation measures that are being carried out at the establishments, as well as a summary of the compliance histories for the establishments within the specific sector that's chosen for that risk profile. And we have that available for each of the food commodities in which ERA food is implemented, which is all food commodities. And next slide, perfect. So in terms of benefits of the ERA food model, there's quite a few. So one being that it's an evidence-based, standardized, consistent, and transparent approach to delivering timely results and supporting risk-informed decision-making. There's also several factors, including the adherence to VTBA programs that are known to have an impact on food safety risks. And thus that information is being incorporated into the risk-informed planning and helping to prioritize work within CFIA's regulatory framework. Efforts that are made by industry to mitigate their risk results are also recognized within the model, as well as compliance through time, including, again, those VTBA programs that can be leveraged by industry. All of that gets coupled in to help support that risk-based regulatory oversight. Additionally, with the model, it was built to be flexible. It can adapt to emerging and scientific trends and also change any changes that are happening within the industry. With that, we can also use the information individually and collectively to identify areas needed for that need improvement in compliance and or mitigation approaches. So next slide. So some lessons that we've learned through this development process and what we think is important when starting to develop a risk-based approach. It's important that you have full commitment of an organization, also to have a transparent and scientific approach for acceptability and credibility. Communication is key at all stages of development, making sure to engage with all stakeholders, both internally and externally, as well as having IT support and a good strategy on change management in place. We'll go next slide. Here we have some links to our external website. You can find information on the ERA food model, as well as other models that we then developed afterwards. So we also have our importer risk assessment model and a few models that we built on the animal health side. All those links are available to you. And we, as Romina mentioned, we can also share the scientific publications that we've published. And with that, I think we can open to questions.
We have received a question in the chat, whether, if you can hear the mic here. So we're not able to hear anything from the microphone in the audience, but I've got a question through the chat that Nitin has shared with us. If we can provide any examples where ERA and IRA has helped avoid trade issues. At this point, not yet, but when the models were developed, one of the goals was also that we will use the information that was produced by the models to help us having discussions with our trade partners. So, for example, for our meat exports, one of the criteria that is considered is the daily presence of meat inspectors on meat establishments. And what we are trying to do right now is to have more information as the years passes, because the models have been implemented just for a few years. So hopefully as time passes and the trends will show that having these type of models implemented is contributing to controlling food safety risk. And then that rationale can be used to have more discussions with our trade partners and potentially say change some of the considerations or conditions for specific trade agreements. But at this point, there hasn't been any trade issues that have been supported or where ERA or IRA have helped. Besides that, whenever we have foreign audits from other governments, we explain how we're using the models, and then they ask us if we can share the risk results, risk profiles of those establishments. So it helped with the discussions with our trading partners. Yes, that would be just in that case.
Hi, can you hear our voice from the meeting room now, right? Is that
Yes.
okay? And so I will apologize for the previous question. Actually, we asked some question from here. So we have like next. Okay. So we will have like another questions from on site.
Hi, Dr. Sanapia. I'm Surin from the, I'm a trade commissioner from the Embassy of Canada. Um, Thank you for your excellent presentation. But my question is not actually a question, but rather than seek your view because of the AI and the big data coming quickly. So my view, I see lots of things can be done through the AI or big data, but because during your risk assessment process, you get a lot of experts and also third-party opinions involved along the assessment. So want to see your view on how can we implement it, big data or AI into this process. Maybe not the whole process, but the process that you see will benefit a lot from this implementation. Thank you.
Thanks for that question. And yes, I agree. AI is on the top of every discussions these days because of the benefits that it could bring, but also there are quite some challenges associated with it. On our side, we are looking into it from two aspects at this point. So, for example, we, Elizabeth and myself, cover the establishment risk assessment model. We didn't describe much about the importer risk assessment model, but it's another tool that we also developed. And right now, this tool is run manually. In the case of ERA, we have an automated solution. We developed a system to automate the process, but not for the importer risk assessment model. So we're looking into some of the artificial intelligence and machine learning tools to automate that process, because for the import sector, the amount of data that we have to handle, extract, clean, and then process is huge. So we have some experience with other models in our own branch. Other people, colleagues have worked with AI and machine learning to automate some of their process for the algorithm calculations, and it has worked. So we're looking into doing something similar for our importer risk assessment model. So that would be one aspect. The other aspect right now is, again, there is another unit within our branch that does environmental scanning for signal identification. So just to detect, see how is the what things are happening around the world for specific pathogens or hazards or contaminants, and extract that information, analyze it, identify trends, and maybe identify a signal that maybe it's something that CFI needs to do something about it. To manage that amount of information, what we call the environmental scanning, we have developed a couple of, we're using artificial intelligence tools, to extract or to do the environmental scanning, assess the information that is available across the world pull the information, process it, and then inform our signal identification process. I'm not directly involved in that, but what I wanted to highlight here is that once that signal is identified, and then it tells us that maybe there is a new pathogen or a new hazard commodity combination that we need to pay more attention to, then we will use that information to update our model and reflect it into the risk calculation process. So those are just two examples that I see where artificial intelligence is being used and can be used, but probably there will be more examples as we engage more into the utilization of these new tools.
I have two more questions here. The first one is which mitigation evidence from foreign suppliers most effectively reduce importer risk in practice? And the second question is, if Thailand wants to build an ERA or IRA-like system, what is the minimum data set and governance structure required at the beginning? Thank you.
Sure. Elizabeth, would you like to take some of those questions?
I'm not sure I got the first question there, to be honest.
For the first question, I mean, which mitigation evidence you required from foreign suppliers that is most effectively reduced importer risk in practice from what you operate the program so far?
Sorry, which of the mitigation measures included within our model we see has the most influence on the risk result of an importer?
Yes.
So within the mitigation measures for our importer risk assessment model, we didn't cover them in this talk, but we do look at whether or not they have a foreign system, food safety system recognition. So whether or not they have a system that's equivalent to Canada, or if they have one that's specific to an inspection process for a specific commodity, those are the mitigation measures that have the most influence on the risk result within the importer risk assessment model. And then I can't remember what the second question is.
So it means is different between each supplier. So for the second question, I ask if Thailand want to build a model like ERA or IRA system, what is the minimum data set or requirement we need to start at the beginning?
In terms of the minimum number of establishments to participate?
Yes.
Well, that's a good question. Romina, I might pass that out because I know in terms of our pilot projects, how many we have for statistical significance and determining accuracy of the results, but in terms of general, I don't want to say general acceptance, but
I don't think there is a minimum number of establishments or importers that we need to have before we can implement the model. It will all depend on the needs of the government authority and what is the goal, how the model is going to be used. And that will also influence the type of solution that you would like to create. So what we have seen in the past, we have made several presentations to other foreign authorities, and there is a way to adapt the models to the needs of each institution or authority, right? So maybe simpler with less numbers of risk factors, or more complex up to the point of an automated solution like the one that we have for ERA. But having an automated solution, if you only need to provide oversight to a limited number of establishments, may not be the most efficient. So in that case, maybe just having a model that is manually run, maybe, that will better fit your needs. But it depends on the context and the needs of each organization. But personally, I don't think there is a minimum number of establishments that you need to have before you can actually develop and implement a tool that is similar to ours.
Thank you very much. So is there any questions? More question on site? More question online? Online มีคำถามอะไรอีกไหมคะ on site มีไหมคะ If no, so at this moment we would like to thank you very much once again to the Dr. Romina Sanabria and Dr. Elizabeth Mantiu, and have a good night to enjoy, and thank you very much for enjoying our seminar today. Thank you so much. Please have a
Thank you. Have a good rest of the event.
In this session, it is my great honor to introduce distinguished keynote speakers, Mr. Nitin Verma, Counselor Agriculture and Regional Technical Specialist, IPAAO, Government of Canada. With over 20 years of experience in the Canadian government, he supports Canadian government relationships in the agriculture, agri-food sector, including activities related to international trade, standards development and harmonization, regulatory and technical collaboration, and market access. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Mr. Nitin Verma.
Thank you, everyone. I'll just confirm, can people online hear me?
ได้ยินไหมคะออนไลน์ได้ยินเสียงจากทางห้องนี้ไหมคะ
So my apologies. Because of the sequence of the workshop, we actually started with a very technical presentation this morning. Session 1 was about Canada's approach to risk assessment for establishments as well as imports. And usually we would start with a high-level overview of Canada, our agriculture sector, our regulatory agency, which Dr. Amado and I are part of, and then go into some of the more detailed work on the risk assessments. But because our colleagues were speaking from the Canadian time zone, we asked them to go first for their Sunday night. So in your brains, just reorder the presentations that you will see today. We'll start now with the general overview of Canada and its agriculture sector, as well as the CFIA. Okay, so I'm going to give you a quick overview of the Canadian Food Inspection Agency and our new office, Dr. Amado and I, that we belong to. And think of this as the general presentation you would have seen at the start of a workshop like this. And I'll start with a quick video if this works. Go to the next slide. Okay, so just basically what the video talks about is a quick overview of our Canadian agriculture sector in general, and really to highlight that Canada is a very diverse country with various climates and soils, which allows us to grow all sorts of different subsectors in the agri-food space, all the way from seafood on our coastal sides, from the west and the east coast with the Pacific coast and the Atlantic coast, to grains and oilseeds in our prairie provinces. A very important representative of that is Mr. Ha Nguyen, who's part of our province of Saskatchewan, which is very difficult to say, but produces a lot of the important grains that are grown in Canada. And really that part of Canada is known as Canada's breadbasket for that region, for that reason. But of course, we also have, because there's so much grain production in that region, we have a lot of animal feed availability. And so we have a lot of Canada's beef and hog sector from the pork side coming from Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. And then if you look at some of the central part of Canada, what we call the central part of Canada is Ontario and Quebec, where we have a lot of our dairy production, food processing sector, and again, a little bit of grains and swine piggery sector. We have high value horticulture crops throughout the country in different parts. So these are things like cherries, blueberries, apples, cranberries. And this hopefully gives you a sense of Canada really being a very strong and competitive agri-food producer. The part that a lot of people don't often realize is that Canada is also, being a very cold country, does all of this in only 4 months. We have one growing season, unlike a lot of tropical countries such as Thailand, where you can have multiple growing seasons of similar crops. Canada is only able to produce once a year and then spends the rest of the year exporting as well as processing. There are pros and cons to this. The largest pro, from our perspective as a regulator, is that it provides a natural reset for pest populations. So when you have cold climates up to -40, -50 in some parts of Canada, it really prevents the growth of pest populations. And this is why you see Canada's agri-food exports as being relatively very clean, high quality, and coming from a very natural region of clean water, clean soils, because we have that annual natural reset. In terms of our overall trade economic abilities, the agri-food sector in Canada is roughly worth about $110 billion. Throughout the various presentations today, you'll see different stats from different years, but in general, this is where we sit. It creates about 1 in 9 jobs for Canada, which is a very important metric for us. And we export more than 2/3 of what we produce. So again, keep in mind, one growing season, 4 months, but we export at least 50% in some parts of our production, and in some cases, even more. In some of our subsectors like canola, we're exporting over 80% of what we produce. This also is partly because Canada as a country has a relatively smaller population. If you look at typical population density compared to a country like Thailand, for example, we have about 36 to 40 million people in all for the whole country. And this is a second largest landmass country in the world. So there is a contrast in density there. In terms of global ranking, we're 8th largest in terms of our agri-food exports. And I just threw some stats to show you how important our relationship is with this part of the world. Back in 2020 or 2022, Canada released its Indo-Pacific strategy. And really that was to focus Canadian efforts on this region and highlight the growing importance, not just in the agri-food trade space, but also as an overall relationship when it comes to energy, when it comes to the geopolitical space. And our colleagues at the embassy, like Mr. Frank Lee, who's our Senior Trade Commissioner, can speak to you a little bit more about that if you're interested. I threw some tables on to show you typically what we export to this region and what we import from this region. And this is why I was happy to see wheat as one of the first responses on our Menti. We do export a lot of wheat to this part of the world. Almost $1.5 billion worth of wheat comes to the ASEAN region as a whole. And it's also the largest export to Thailand, valued at about $210 million in 2024. Soybeans, dry peas, a lot of those are coming from province of Saskatchewan, processed food products, and then frozen pork and beef. And we see a lot of opportunity to increase our bilateral trade. Similarly, we also import a lot from this part of the world. I don't have the Thai numbers, but we do import a lot of seafood from Thailand. We import a lot of processed food products, coffee, tea, spices, and coconut products. And the photo down there is just a signal that you may have heard that this year our Prime Minister announced the initiation of FTA discussion, free trade agreement discussion with Thailand. And this is separate to the broader multilateral FTA discussion that's currently happening with ASEAN as a whole. And the only reason I mention that is a signal that this means that Canada and Thailand, the relationship from a trade perspective is really expected to grow in a big, significant way. And our trade with the region has been growing year over year. So basically to say this is an important part of the world for Canada, in fact, it's one of the reasons that they put my office, the IPAAO, in this region. And we'll talk a bit more about that in a few minutes. I'll focus a bit on the CFIA. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency is a consolidated competent authority. We're the regulator in Canada that pulls together all the inspectorate functions of our various departments and agencies. And people like Ha and I will remember in the past, we had a very fragmented inspectorate function. We had people sitting in Fisheries Canada, we had people sitting in Agriculture Canada, we had people sitting in different parts of Health Canada, and they were all carrying out inspector functions. And in 1997, the Government of Canada made a decision to pull all those inspectorate function people into one agency called the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. So even though our title only has the word food in it, we do oversee all three business lines: animal health, the veterinary work that Canada does, the plant health phytosanitary work that Canada does, as well as the food safety work. And if anything, I think this is a reflection really of the move the world is taking now towards a One Health approach. There is an understanding that all three business lines are linked when it comes to the safety of food for human and animal consumption. And so actually having all three of our functions, animal, plant, and business and food, in one agency has proven to be very useful and very helpful from a risk assessment standpoint. And you saw hints of that in the presentation this morning. We were able to use data from all three areas in the CFIA to inform our internal decision-making when it comes to risk assessment. We are also considered the National Plant Protection Organization under IPPC and the Competent Authority for Animal Health under the World Organization of Animal Health, as well as the Food Safety Authority under Codex. And so again, representing all three business lines at the international fora responsible for those. We develop regulation and deliver inspection services that are impacting and preventing food safety risks, protecting our plant base in Canada from pests and invasive species. We're managing animal diseases such as ASF, which thankfully in Canada we are still free of, and protecting animal health and welfare during transport and rearing. We contribute to consumer protection when these products are consumed, and facilitating international trade through market access for our food, animal, and plant products. We are the science-based agency of Canada, if you can think of us that way. We don't work alone. We work in partnership with many others, and I think I have a slide on that, so maybe I'll talk about this first. This is what we look like across the country. If it's helpful for you to contextualize CFIA, because Canada is a vast country, we're spread out across the country with various regional offices and roughly about 7,000 skilled and trained professionals. We are the largest science-based regulator in Canada, so that means we hire the most number of scientifically trained professionals. Here's the slide on partnerships. No department in Canada operates alone. We work closely with our colleagues at Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, Health Canada, our Border Services Agency, Fisheries Canada, the Environment Department, Global Affairs Canada, which is responsible for our international presence, as well as provincial, so subnational partners at the provincial level, international organizations, industry, value chains, as well as academia. And I've chosen to highlight on the right side here the CFIA and Agriculture Canada for a reason, because these are the two departments that make up the Indo-Pacific Agriculture Office. And we'll talk a little bit about that on a subsequent slide. CFIA is present across the entire supply chain from farm to fork, literally. We have some sort of oversight and inspectorate presence all the way from production areas of animal diseases and plant pests. I believe all these slides are available to all of you at that first QR code that was on screen. So if any of you want these slides, feel free to download them there. We're present in the processing and slaughter areas. So you would have heard Ms. Romina talk about in her presentation the presence of CFI inspectors in federally registered establishments. So if there's any, for example, beef or pork producing facility in Canada that wants to export its products beyond provincial boundaries, they are legally required to have a CFI inspector on site at all times. And in some cases, in some of our large plants, we actually have an office embedded within those plants. And so this really contributes to Canada's credibility as a safe source of food products with this level of oversight. At the distribution networks, so transshipment points, transloading points where grain is, for example, loaded from trucks into inland elevators, and then from inland elevators, it's moved by rail to terminal elevators. This will make sense if you're in the grain sector. We do have audits and oversight done by CFIA authorized organizations as well as CFIA themselves. And then all the way to consumption. We do provide some assistance on safe food handling for consumers. We provide guides on how to heat your food effectively, how to handle and store food effectively. We do a lot of this in collaboration with our colleagues at Health Canada. And this part of our work will be presented in a little more detail by Dr. Amato later today when he talks about some of our efforts on food safety and recall, which is another strong part of our health ecosystem. We pride ourselves in having a very strong legislative framework, and this was recently modernized, and I'll talk about that a bit in my next presentation. We provide training, guidance, policies in place. We have a governance structure for our agency. I won't go into too much detail on that. Every country has its own setup, and there's pros and cons to each, but we have a strong laboratory setup across the country, which allows us to provide, because of the 4.5-hour time zone difference from east to west coast in Canada, having labs across the network actually allows us to provide real-time results to a lot of our inspectors. And we have a strong compliance and enforcement arm. So our inspectors have the legal authority under the CFIA Inspection Act. In some cases, their authorities are even stronger than what our police colleagues have. And this is often a very interesting argument in Canada, because CFIA inspectors have the right to enter a premises without a warrant. And police officers cannot do that. They need a warrant. And so in some respect, CFIA has almost got more powers from an enforcement standpoint. And that's always an interesting comparison. We play a strong role in foodborne recalls. I talked a bit about that, and Dr. Amato will go into that in a bit more detail later. And we represent Canada in the international space at Codex, WOA, and IPPC. I don't need to go into this too much detail. This is some of our internal governance. But this is probably more interesting, is what we prioritize as an agency. We really pride ourselves on being responsive and agile. We are recently going through a strong amount of digitalization effort, and some of the information you saw this morning from Dr. Romina and Dr. Elizabeth on the ERA-IRA model is representative of that. And if I can contextualize it a little bit, CFIA has always carried out risk assessment-based activities. We recognize that even with an agency of 7,000 people, we don't have enough resources to look at everything that is coming into the country or being processed in the country. So what we decided to do early on is take a science-based and a risk-based approach to our activities. And so what previously used to be done by paper and by a lot of laborious analysis by some of our data analysts. I don't know if you caught on Ms. Romina's slides, one of the slides talked about how we did our assessment of facilities on an annual basis. So once a year, we would look at a slaughterhouse, or we would look at a meat exporter or a pork exporter, and only once a year assess whether they deserve, what level of inspection they deserved. The data that we're now collecting through the ERA model, because it's all digitized, because we're now doing a lot of this work online, allows us to do that risk assessment on a daily basis instead of an annual basis, which is very powerful if you think about it. Because if there is a change in how a facility is importing material, processing material, that is likely happening on a more frequent cadence than annual. And so being able to respond in almost real time on a daily basis to a facility's risk rating is very powerful. And so this is what some of our new digital tools are allowing us to do. And Kunsita, your question about AI and big data sets is a very relevant one, because that's the way the world is moving. Everyone is moving towards big data, and soon we will need tools to be able to process that volume of information. And I think that's what Ms. Romina was talking, Dr. Romina was talking about at the end there. For some of the import data we get, it is just so voluminous that we need a software tool to help us analyze a lot of that. So that speaks to some of the CFIA's agility. We're trying to adapt with the way products are being processed and produced and traded on a constantly moving basis. We provide intelligent oversight to not just our own inspectors, but to our international partners. So as Dr. Romina mentioned, when we have foreign audits, when we have equivalence assessments, a lot of this data is very useful in those discussions, and also allows us to negotiate market access both ways. We pride ourselves in an enabled workforce and empowering our stakeholders. And this is an important piece. The CFIA does not operate on its own as a government body with a sort of a dictatorship view. Our strong belief is one of being accountable and transparent with not just our regulated parties, but our partners. And so you will see a lot of CFIA effort is taken in stakeholder consultation, whether it's international or domestic, as well as some of the technical work we do. And Dr. Amado and my presence here today is actually a part of that. We believe strongly in having technical collaboration with partners abroad. We have a technical collaboration unit out of Ottawa that works on a lot of different engagements with countries like Japan, like the US, like Korea, like Thailand, like ASEAN, Europe. And so we maintain very strong scientific relationships with all of our trading partners for that reason. I mentioned this a little bit already, the amount of work we're spending on digitalization to modernize our inspection team. The idea really is to move to a system where an inspector can come into their workplace and on their handheld have a list of facilities that they need to visit. And each facility will be for a different reason. One could be for an export certification, to write a phytosanitary certificate. One could be to assess or help with an audit. One could be to check an import of a certain orchid from Thailand, for example. One could be another task that they could be assigned in the day, could be a regular inspection checkup to maintain some of the ERA-based information that's coming in. And so we're moving to this system where the data system will give us our prioritized tasks for the day, and therefore the month, and therefore the year, and that will all be within the compliance targets that we have set. So for example, as Dr. Romina mentioned, we want to look at a facility twice a year. That will be factored into the tasks that an inspector receives on their handheld for the day. And so we're moving towards this. We're not there yet. We're putting all these programs in place, the standard inspection program, There's another one that's not mentioned here called ICTS, the Import Control Tracking System. This is what allows inspectors to look at an imported product, take a sample, send it to a lab, get a result, and then release the shipment. And that's how we do a lot of our trade-related work. This is, again, sort of internal, but the various acts and regulations that allow us to carry out the activities that we do. I mentioned this because in my next presentation, I will talk a little bit about the Safe Food for Canadians Act. So I won't go into too much detail there, but just as a hint. The CFI also maintains something called a guidance repository. You can think of this as our online library. But it's impressive how detailed it is. I do invite you to visit our website, inspection.bc.ca. And what it has in there is a lot of guidance on how our inspectors carry out the inspections that they do at a facility. And so again, in an aim to be fully transparent, our inspectors don't show up with a hidden checklist of things that they're going to look at. All of this information is available online. We want facilities to know what they're going to be audited and checked for, because it allows them to therefore be more compliant and safer from a food safety perspective. And so this guidance repository, if you go to this website, you can sort all of our policy documents, all of our guidelines, all of our instructions for our internal inspectorate team, and it's all available publicly. We highly believe in having all of this information available publicly to all parties. This also builds a lot of credibility for Canada because it allows trading partners to see what strict requirements Canada has in place for itself. And that's one thing we pride ourselves on, is that we maintain the same requirements for international trade that we do for domestic production. We don't differentiate between risk of processed food products, whether they're traded internationally, and this applies to both imports and exports, or whether they're being produced for Canadians' safety. We maintain a list of export requirements, and this is done in collaboration with our Trade Commissioner network that sits abroad in our various embassies and high commissions around the world. So for example, you can go to the site and look up what would be required to export pork products to Thailand, for example. And we will have on this page the health certificates in place, all the different requirements from a labeling perspective, and if there's more information needed, who to contact. And so this is a very useful page or set of resources for our exporters in Canada. And similarly, we maintain the same thing on the import side. And this is one of the questions we received in advance. So thank you for doing that, sending us some questions. The AIRS system, the Automated Import Reference System, is again, publicly available single window system where you can go in and type in any commodity. If you know the HS code, you can put in the HS code. If you know just the common name, you can put in the common name. If you know the Latin name, you can put in the Latin name. And it will tell you what are Canada's import requirements for that specific product for its intended purpose. So you can write for consumption, for seeding, for sowing, for distribution, for dissemination, et cetera, or let's say you say for trade show use or something like that. Everything in AIRS will show you all the requirements that would apply to that imported product. And I know that was of interest to some of the exporters in the room as well as online, was how to understand Canada's import requirements for their specific seafood products, for example, plant products, et cetera, and meat. If you have any questions about this, please feel free to reach out to either Dr. Amato or myself. Again, being in the region allows us to give you a quicker response than waiting for a Canadian to wake up and answer your question. We're happy to point you to the right information. This is some of the work we do on compliance and enforcement, just again to show you our powers. If a facility has brought in something that is non-compliant or is doing something that is non-compliant, we have the ability to restrict its movement, prohibit its movement, seize it, order a mandatory recall, order destruction. You may have seen CFI was in the news recently. I don't know if it reached Thailand, but there was an issue with an ostrich farm in the west coast of British Columbia, or of Canada, where we had detected avian influenza. And so part of our response when we detect avian influenza is to carry out Depopulation is the word that's used in Canada, but you all know what that means. And so that faced a lot of contention in the media. It got a lot of media attention, but all of that was done, in keeping with the CFIA's powers as well as legal authorities. We do have the ability to put in place administrative penalties, so a fine, basically. And one of the things we pride ourselves on is we take a very staggered approach, or a sort of hierarchical approach to our penalties. So we'll start, if it's a first offense for a facility, we'll start with a warning. We'll start with a letter. Again, it depends on the severity of the offense. The next offense may attract a fine. The third offense may attract a higher fine. And then the fourth or fifth could result in criminal or court proceedings, and all the way to a facility losing its license to operate. And that can be quite damaging economically for the organization. But we do use these powers judiciously. We, of course, being a regulator, we're not always viewed positively in Canada. Our regulated parties, or our people, the businesses that are impacted by our actions, often view us negatively, as you would have seen in this ostrich example. But we maintain a very strong communications team at the CFIA to not only educate the public about why some of our actions are required. And I'd be curious if you face similar challenges in Thailand when you do your presentations about how you manage some of the stakeholder engagement and communications aspects of your work. This is it's an ongoing challenge for us. And so we have a media team. We put out a lot of proactive information. On the recall side, Dr. Amado will go over some of the comms we do on recalls and how important that is to spread the word. But this is a big part of our work in the agency. This is our center of administration. The reason I put this on is that this is our single window. We have an online tool called My CFIA. And anyone in Canada who needs CFIA services, whether it's to request an export permit, certificate, or an import permit, or to understand whether they need to have a license for a certain activity, they can go to My CFIA and apply, and we can process their application in a timely manner and assess what they need to do next. I already mentioned this. We really do pride ourselves on being extremely transparent and accountable. We publish all of our actions. All of our food recalls, for example, are published online. All of our inspectorate actions, to a certain extent, where we can protect client confidentiality, is published online. We do an annual agency results, DPR it's called, where we talk about these are the actions the CFI undertook in the past year, along with our financial reports. We have something called Access to Information and Privacy. This allows any Canadian to submit a request for information related to a specific issue in Canada. And so you can imagine in a regulator, that's a very commonly used tool where we get requests for why certain legal decisions were made to destroy a shipment, to reject a shipment, to prevent the export of a shipment, et cetera, et cetera. And so this is part of our transparency and communications. All of this is available online, as I said, at our inspection.gc.ca website. I talked a little bit about how important science is to our agency. Almost 2/3 of our staff have a background in science. We do in-house risk assessments. Any decisions that are taken on shipments have to be taken on laboratory tests that were done by a CFI laboratory. We do not use or trust or we will validate, but we will not use a third-party lab as a final decision step. We will use third-party labs as screening tools. So, for example, the case I can think of is Phytophthora ramorum on imported nursery plants from the USA and China. If the first initial screen is done by, let's say, a university lab in University of Guelph, they will use ELISA to do the first screening. And then once we get a certain set of positives or potentials, we will assess those with PCR or RT-PCR in a CFIA lab. And this is really to ensure that whatever regulatory decision is being taken under a legally binding lab test. And that's what The reason we do that is that's why we do it in-house. We don't want to trust that to an external third party. This is an important part of why the CFIA has the credibility it does. Surveillance is another one. Pest surveillance is a very important part of Canada's international obligations. If we deem a pest to be a quarantine pest, we are legally required to prove that it does not already exist in Canada. And part of doing that is having a national surveillance strategy for both foodborne pests, animal pests, as well as plant health pests. And so all three of our business lines carry out a lot of surveillance-related activities using traps and lures and random testing of fruit and vegetables and food products. And there's an example of the various kinds of scientific professionals we employ within the agency. This is the laboratory network I mentioned earlier. I think my slides are all out of place, but this shows you where our labs are and what they specialize in. So different labs are specialists in plant health, animal health, or food safety. And having this wide, diverse range of labs across time zones really helps us in prompt response. Some of these are actually level 2 accredited labs by the international health standards. This, I'll shift now to talking a little bit more about our office. Dr. Amado and I belong to the Indo-Pacific Agriculture Office. And as I mentioned, in about 2022, I think, right, Frank? Is that when we announced the Indo-Pacific strategy for Canada? Under that strategy, we decided it was important to have a physical presence for our agriculture network within the region. And we chose the Philippines just out of convenience. The Philippines happens to be a space where the embassy had some space for us, but also happens to be, in terms of connectivity to the region, an easy country to fly in and out of for both Canada as well as the ASEAN region. So I'm using ASEAN and Indo-Pacific interchangeably, but of course we know they're not interchangeable. But what we have done at the IPAAO so far, Dr. Amado and I and my team, has been to focus a lot on ASEAN countries. And that just happens to be where our relationship is the strongest. But really, our office is responsible for the Indo-Pacific region. And so some of the work we get pulled into includes countries like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and then even up to Korea and Taiwan and other places. But really, the intent here was to have a physical presence, a regional satellite office of both the CFIA, which is our agency, as well as Agriculture Canada. Agriculture Canada and CFIA play very complementary roles with each other. Agriculture Canada is responsible for some of the market advocacy and trade promotion and market development efforts. So if you see Canada at a trade show booth, that's likely, especially if it's an agri-food show, it's likely AFC that's created that booth. CFIA, as I've just gone over, is our regulator. We lead on the technical assistance when it comes to negotiating market access for the specific health certificates, et cetera, et cetera. And so having both of our agencies or departments represented in the same office abroad has been very useful. We're now entering our second year of operation. And I think our relationship with Thailand and the workshops we've done is a clear example of how useful it has already been. I remember I was here in November last year, where we had a similar workshop with ACFS. At the time, I think it was Kun Ratharin who was in the role, and we had a very good dialogue and exchange and outlined future areas of collaboration. So that's something we look forward to doing with you on an ongoing basis. We know this dialogue is not a one-off. This is a relationship that will continue evolving, and we look forward to building on that with you. It's important to note, though, that the Indo-Pacific Ag Office is not alone in this. We're actually building and amplifying work that's already being done in the region. And if you look at our trade commissioners, such as Kun Surin, who's in the audience today, and our embassy team here from the trade side, led by Mr. Frank Lee, you know, Canada already has a presence abroad at its embassies and high commissions. But it may have lacked the technical scientific presence. And so having the Indo-Pacific office has really allowed us to augment that work with the technical expertise from our two departments. The focus here for the IPAAO is to really expand some of our trade opportunities And I'd like to highlight there that it's not just a one-way trade here. We're not just looking for Canadian products to enter these markets. We're looking to support a bilateral movement. So clarifying Canadian import requirements is a large part of what we do, and we look forward to helping you access our markets. From a trade perspective, Canada strongly believes in integrated dual direction supply chains. And so we really do want to work with all of our partners in the region. As a point of example, I'll share with you from a risk perspective, we didn't cover this in the ERA, but for the most part, pests from this part of the world, being a tropical region, cannot survive in Canada. And so for the most part, imported fruit and vegetable products, for example, we have a very low risk rating on from countries like Thailand, because we know if they came with pests, they wouldn't survive the harsh winters and the cold of Canada. So this is one of the reasons we look at the bilateral trade as a very important part of our relationship here. Having CFIO officials in place allows us to resolve regulatory and technical issues right at the point where they're happening. So if there's a shipment issue in Thailand, for example, we can reassure authorities here of the certificates or provide validation as required in a more timely manner. Again, not having to wait for the time zone. And then advancing cooperation is technically what we're doing today. We're coming and discussing with you and learning from each other, and that's a large part of our relationship. This is our team in the Indo-Pacific office, just to give you a quick sense of the team. We have 8 officers, all working on different aspects of our work. And it's just to, if you see any of us around, please do drop by and say hello. If you see us at a trade show or at an event, we're always happy to work with you. A lot of us are dog lovers. Here's some of the activities that we have worked on recently by having our presence for the last 2 years almost, or a year and a half. Some of the market coordination activities, we have so many different players in Canada, our associations, our provincial partners, our federal partners in the various departments. So IPAAO is able to coordinate some of that work for the region. So this is maybe an area where we're hoping to support the work our embassies and trade commissioners do, because they work specifically bilaterally for the specific country they're working in. Because IPAAO is regional, we're able to take a more regional approach to some of our activities. And that's been useful in multi-sector trade events, for example, and just elevating Canada's capabilities in the region as an agriculture supplier. We've supported various trade missions. We've worked on specific market access issues, for example, blueberries to Vietnam, seed potatoes. We recently negotiated a wheat protocol with Indonesia. I'm saying it wasn't just us doing this in support of the team on the ground, of course. Preventing shipment issues, for example, halal is a growing trend in the region. Countries like Indonesia and Malaysia, of course, but then, of course, Thailand and Philippines have recently told us that because of the tourism sector, it's very important for halal certification for a lot of imported products. And so that's something we're working on, is educating Canadian suppliers on how to meet this region's demands for halal certification. Here's some of the technical workshops that my team specifically, Amado and myself and another colleague, Dr. Penelope Kirsch, have done in the region. We've had some various workshops with Malaysia, with Indonesia. We've come to Thailand a few times, so hopefully by the next time I do this presentation, we'll have today's photo on this slide. But this just shows you some of the work that we've been highlighting and prioritizing. I will highlight the ASEAN working group participation as a bit of a heads up and a precursor. Dr. Amado and I have been working on a specific project with ASEAN. We view the ASEAN bloc as a force multiplier for us. So if we engage, we're happy to engage bilaterally with each of the countries in this region. But if we engage with ASEAN, it allows us to deliver workshops to 11 countries at one time. And so what we're working with them on, just a week ago, we got approval from a funding perspective, is a new project called CanSafe. I don't have details of it on this presentation, but a quick overview. It will include 4 workshops that we will do with ASEAN members on various aspects of our CFIA work, including phytosanitary study tour, a food safety workshop in Indonesia, a governance seminar in the region and other things. So stay tuned for that. Thailand will, of course, be a part of that, being a part of ASEAN. That was my last slide. I know I spoke a lot. Happy to take any questions you may have about the CFIA, our overall agriculture systems in Canada. And if you need my contact information, that QR code will allow you to save my card. Thank you, Kun.
I can show our video.
Oh, okay.
I will share the video through the staff over there.
That's a nice way to end the presentation. Just a quick 1-minute video of the Canada's agriculture network sector.
The kitchen. It's where we gather, where we eat and nurture. We laugh, spend time with friends and family, or simply enjoy some well-earned time alone. We eat, we drink, and celebrate in good times and special times. It's where we create and explore our passion. It's the heart of our home, where we provide for future generations. But most of all, no matter where our kitchen is, it's where we share. So when you share Canada's best. From our earth to our sea, whether fresh or well-aged. Canada is rich and sustainable in all that we provide. It's always been in our nature. And that's why we're proud to say, Canada is the world's kitchen.
Thank you.
So now, okay, thank you very much for Mr. Nitin Verma for your insightful and informative presentation of the overview of CFIA and IPAAO. But at this moment, we would like to open the floor for questions and comments, both from our on-site and also online. มีคำถามโปรดยกมือขึ้นนะคะ แล้วก็สอบถามได้เลย
I actually do have a question I would like to know for a long time. In the past 3 years, I worked on ASEAN-Canada Free Trade Agreement, and delegates from Canada are people from CFIA and Global Canada. And today we also have trade counselor, Mr. Ha from Saskatchewan. Sorry if I say it wrongly. So from governance perspective, how do you divide responsibility on SPS related matters?
Thank you. That's a very good question. And I'm pleased to hear that under the ASEAN-Canada negotiation, we are very close. We actually closed the SPS chapter a couple of weeks ago. So that's actually a huge kudos, and probably thanks a lot to your efforts as well on that. I know Thailand was very vocal and instrumental on the negotiations. You're asking a specific question about who carries the responsibility on the SPS negotiations, and it really does fall on Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada as our agriculture department. So the overall negotiation of FTAs is co-led by Global Affairs Canada on our side, a department to which Mr. Frank Lee is part of, because they oversee the overall trade agenda for Canada. They're our Commerce Ministry, for example. But when they have to work on technically specific issues like SPS chapters and requirements, they defer to their partner department at AAFC as well as CFIA. And so if you look at our two departments, AFC and CFIA both have within them a team that works on trade negotiations. and they are brought in to lead on the SPS chapter discussions and negotiations. A lot of that also happens following a lot of national consultation efforts. And so AFC and CFIA, as part of that trade negotiation work, will consult with key industry associations in Canada. So for example, Canada Beef is our Association of Beef Producers and Suppliers. Canada Pork and Canada Pork Council represent our pork interests. Pulse Canada represents our pulses interests. They will consult with them as well as with individual companies and the public. The consultation is open online to the public to allow Canadians to voice what is important for them in the free trade negotiation that will happen. And so if we hear, for example, from our Maple Syrup Association that they would really like to be able to export maple syrup to Thailand because of the demand for maple syrup that we saw on the Menti at the start of the session, that is a clear signal that our SPS committee co-chairs will bring to the table and then carry out that negotiation and discussion. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, so from Thailand side, like when there's trade intelligence or when we need to have a technical consultation, who do we contact? Contact IPAAO or CFAA or AA?
That's a good question. If it is specifically related to an FTA, I would encourage you to keep relaying that through the Global Affairs Canada team lead on that FTA. And then they will triage it down to the specific SPS co-lead or department that would lead on that. The reason I encourage that is it's important to have that single window. Please understand, IPAAO is not here to replace any function of the Canadian government. We're here to support and augment. If you have questions, though, if your exporters have questions on clarifying Canada's import requirements for a specific product, tuna, for example, and that's not under an FTA discussion, you can reach out to any one of us at IPAAO, at CFIA if you have contacts there, even at Global Affairs Canada if you know Kun Surin and the Trade Commissioner responsible for the agriculture space. He or others will find out the answer to your question and most likely will consult with CFIA and get you that answer. So we're giving you multiple people to contact, but if it's easy to remember, I would say your embassy remains your main point of contact. They will figure out how to triage it appropriately. Is that okay, Frank? Maybe Frank has something to add to that.
Sawadee Krap. So thank you very much for that very insightful, and I think it's a very important question. I just wanted to add that between Canada and Thailand, there are discussions right now in terms of a Canada-Thailand free trade agreement. It was just a few weeks ago that the two leaders, the two prime ministers in Korea, committed to both starting and concluding negotiations by the end of 2026, so by next December. It's a very ambitious timeframe, but it's certainly something that your Prime Minister, along with your Commerce Minister, Supaji, had indicated this is very important for Thailand in terms of trade diversification. Canada just initiated its own public consultations, one of 4 countries that just yesterday we actually received the green light to proceed. We've had ongoing discussions with the Commerce, with your Commerce Ministry. So our Director General has been identified as the point of contact and as the likely chief negotiator. So I'm sure you'll be hearing more from Minister Supaji's team, just in terms of the consultations coming up and just given somewhat of a condensed time frame, just given some of the domestic developments in Thailand and just trying to align this with the coordination on the Canadian side. And also in terms of Canada-ASEAN, which is very close to completion. Both governments have also committed to concluding this the early part of 2026. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Frank. We're trying to keep this very interactive, and Dr. Amado and I brought treats from Canada So maybe I can ask a question, and if you answer the question right, you will receive a little treat. If you remember back to the presentation I did, how much of Canada's agriculture production do we export to the world? Please feel free to raise your hand and answer the question, and we can take online as well. Anybody with a clear, take a guess. How much, in terms of a rough percentage? If you're close, you get a treat. Our Canadian colleagues are not allowed to answer. Ha is not allowed to answer. No? We talked about in one of my earlier slides, it's roughly 50%, and in some cases up to 80% of Canada's agriculture produce is exported out of Canada. So no treat. We have more treats for later. Any other questions? Who can pronounce Saskatchewan? Yes. Yeah.
Products. I'm just curious that in terms of market access issues, if it's not a secret, are we seeking to expand market access for our Canadian agri-food products to Thailand? And also on the ask list, is Thailand also seeking to expand or secure new access for their products to Canada?
It's a good question. Are you asking specifically under the context of an FTA or in general?
In general.
In general, thank you. So Ha's question actually is a good one in that it also allows me to talk a little bit about the Market Access Secretariat. And this is a team that both Ha and I used to work for in the past. AFC and CFIA have had a long history of collaborating and working together. So having a regional office, the IPAAO in this part of the world, is nothing new to us. We have a team that actually sits in Ottawa that represents a combined effort for our two ministries and departments already, and it's called the MAS, M-A-S, Market Access Secretariat. And it's meant to be a single window when you're discussing market access issues with any country in the world. And so an industry member from Canada can approach MAS and have a discussion about opening access to Thailand for product X, for example, or an international partner can work with MAS to understand Canada's import requirements if they want to access the Canadian market for their products, as another example. And so Ha's question is about the Canada and Thailand relationship when it comes to our market access requests. And yes, Ha, we do have on both sides, I believe, requests that are in the system. A lot of times, market access requests in the agri-food space take multiple years to resolve. And that's just related to the process required. There's an exchange of health information on either side. There's sometimes a need for a physical audit and a visit to a country to assess a facility or a system. In addition, there's a lot of pest information, surveillance, and PRA, we call it, pest risk assessment process that is done. And so there's often a multi-year process. And one example I can think of is, for example, Canada's access to Thailand for beef. We do have some existing access, but we're looking to expand that further. That's a market that we believe Canadian exporters are interested in. We know there's a lot of Australian beef, for example, coming into Thailand. And Canada's beef production is at a similar high quality niche sort of value space. So we're looking to increase that. Similarly, I know Thailand has approached Canada for a lot of tropical fruit exports. And that's something, as I said, we're very open to. It's just a matter of going through the motions of the PRA process. Thank you for the question. Yes, Kunsirin has a question. Okay, we can hand out our treat.
AFKATCHEWAN.
Very good. I think that deserves a treat, Amado. If you can. Okay, so Amado said we're going to give you a treat later. Any other questions? Are we okay for time for this session? Okay, thank you very much.
After we learn about the Canadian agency and competent authorities, like overview of the CFIA and also IPAAO. So now we move to Thailand side as well. We have we will now proceed to session 3, overview of Thai competent authorities. In this session, it is my great honor to introduce distinguished keynote speakers, Mr. Sitha Ketprathum, Policy and Plan Analyst, Senior Professional Level, National Bureau of Agriculture Commodities and Food Standard, Ministry of Agriculture and Cooperative. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Mr. Sitha Ketprathum.
Hello again to everyone. First of all, I need to apologize in advance that I may not speak quickly in English as it's not my mother tongue language, and I will need to use a script during the presentation, but I will try to the best of my ability to transfer information from my side. First of all, I am Sitha Ketprathum. I am the head of the 3rd International Policy Subdivision at ACFS. I work on SPS cooperation with trading partners in North America, South America, and Africa. Today, we are honored to have IPAAO and the Embassy of Canada in Thailand to share knowledge. And at the same time, Canada also would like to understand more about Thailand's overall control system. So today I will give an overview of Thailand's system. If anything I say is not fully accurate, I kindly invite our colleagues from competent authorities to correct me or clarify. And if some part is already familiar to you, I hope this will be useful for an update for everyone. First, I will briefly share an overview of Thailand-Canada trade, especially in agricultural and food products, to show why this partnership is matter. And then I will explain the roles of Thailand competent authorities. I do hope this will be especially useful for Canadian friends, and I will also mention a few ongoing tasks that may lead to future cooperation. In 2024, total trade between Thailand and Canada was about 4,400 million Canadian dollars, or about 113 million baht. This increased by 9.8% from 2023. Thailand export to Canada about 2,900 million Canadian dollars, or 75 million baht, 1,000 million baht, up 12% from 2023. The key products include canned and processed seafood, iron and steel and computer parts, rice and rubber products. For Canadian side, Canada export to Thailand about 1,400 million Canadian dollars, or 38,000 million baht, up to 5.8% from 2023. The key products include electronic circuits, plant and plant products, and fertilizer and pesticides. For this slide, Mr. Nitin have just presented this information, so I will be brief here. On the import side, from Thailand import from Canada, the agricultural and food products from Canada are mostly agricultural raw materials. The durum wheat is the #1 import every year. It is about 63% of the value of the top 5 of imported product. The second soybeans, which is consistently number 2, about 24% of the top 5. And overall, our import is increased sharply in 2023 and decreased a little bit in 2024, and we expect to keep at the similar level this year. On the export side, the top 2 products are consistently tuna and Thai Hormeli jasmine rice. Tuna is number 1. It takes about 41% of the top 5 export values. And for Thai Hormeli rice, it takes about 25 to 30% of the top 5. And another interesting product is prepared cooked chicken, which is ranked number 3. It keeps a stable export value over time. And for this slide is quite important. It gives overall picture for Thai control system. For import, Thailand main authority for food safety is the Thai Food and Drug Administration under the Ministry of Public Health. However, SPS is also covers the plant health and animal health. These areas are regulated by agencies under the Ministry of Agriculture and Cooperatives, including the Department of Agriculture, Department of Fisheries, and Department of Livestock Development. Because the food safety and plant or animal health overlap in many products, the Thai FDA has delegated some import inspection tests to the Ministry of Agriculture and Cooperatives. For export, Thailand must comply with import country requirements. This is mainly responsibility of the Ministry of Agriculture and Cooperatives, working with farmers, producers, processors, exporters, and with partner countries authorities to make the trade possible. This slide shows the whole chain. Most Ministry of Agriculture and Cooperative work support export from farm to packing house and processing plant. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Public Health and Thai FDA focus more on processing, retail business, and consumer protection. For Canadian products that plan to export to Thailand, the first step is to identify what product it is and which SPS issues apply. And you can ask ACFS if you don't know. Thailand has 20 ministries. Under each ministry, there are departments. These departments have legal authority to regulate specific areas. For agricultural and food control, the key ministries are Ministry of Public Health and Ministry of Agriculture and Cooperative. Under the Ministry of Public Health, the main department is the Thai FDA. And under the Ministry of Agriculture and Cooperatives, the key departments are Department of Agriculture, Department of Livestock Development, Department of Fisheries, and ACFS. In the next slides, I will briefly introduce each agency to give you a clear picture, but I will not go into detail because there are so many tasks in each agency. The first one is DOA. The Department of Agriculture is responsible for plant products. Key laws that Canadian operators should know include the Plant Protein Act and Hazardous Substances Act. For hazardous substance, multiple ministries may involve depending on the topic, but the main one related to pesticide is the DOA. The DOA laws also include GAP certification for plant products, farmer training on agricultural chemical use, operating plant quarantine stations, and conducting the PRA, pest risk analysis, for the import. Examples of DOA work that related to Canada is setting import requirement for Canadian plant products. This is the example I give you on the slide, such as apples, pears, and cherries that published in 2012, and the seed potatoes for 2016. The next one is Department of Livestock Development, or DLD. DLD is responsible for terrestrial animals and livestock products. Key laws include Animal Epidemic Act and the Animal Feed Control Act. DLD laws include GAP certification for livestock products, hygiene safety control in livestock production, training farmer and slaughterhouse staff, animal disease surveillance and control, and vaccination support. And they also operate quarantine checkpoints for import and export. In addition, DLD is involved in other important regulations such as Ministry of Agriculture notification on cooked food prepared for animal carcasses under the Animal Epidemic Act, the Food Act, and the Ministry of Public Health notification on foods containing veterinary drug residues. The next one is the Department of Fisheries, or DOF. DOF is responsible for aquatic animals, both wildlife and aquaculture. The key law is Royal Ordinance on Fisheries, which is Thailand's main law for fisheries control and management. DAF laws include GAP certification for fishery products, residue testing, and hygiene control for export production. You can see it's similar to the Department of Agriculture and Department of Livestock Development. DOF also operate the fishery inspection checkpoints for import and export. Also, DOF also involved in important regulations, including Animal Epidemic Act, Food Act, and veterinary drug. And the last one before the FDA is ACFS, or National Bureau of Agricultural Community and Food Standards, which I am come from. ACFS is not directly regulator for specific products. We are a central agency that works on policies to improve Thailand's competitiveness in global markets under Agricultural Standard Act. Example of ACFS work include developing agricultural standards, acting as accreditation body to support private sector certification scheme, and serving as Thailand's coordinator in WTO SPS and TBT committees for agricultural and food products. We also the delegate from Thailand to negotiate with partner countries on agreements such as ASEAN-Canada Free Trade Agreement, where SPS chapter had just concluded in the last November. Currently, ACFS has developed 417 standards. Most are voluntary. There are only 9 mandatory standards, and these standards also apply to imports. In general, Thailand uses mandatory standards only when necessary for important causes such as economic reasons, safety reasons, or national policy priorities. Currently, mandatory standards include frozen durian packing house, pig farm, hen layer farm, elephant camp, the big one, elephant, and milk collection center, shrimp hatchery, peanut kernels, and sulfur dioxide fumigation for fresh fruit. I would like to explain a little bit more about ACFS because we serve as a contact point in several organizations. In short, we circulate SPS and TBT measures and respond to questions under the WTO system for agricultural and food products. We also coordinate work related to Codex, IPPC, and WOA with responsible competent authorities and act as a focal point for SPS matter in ASEAN. One important topic in Thailand right now is digital transformation. We aim to facilitate trade and reduce costs for operators by moving from paper certificates to electronic data. For plant products, DOA has completed the e-phyto certificate system and is gradually testing certificate exchange with trading partners. Other certificates are still underway to develop, including animal health certificate by DLD, aquatic animal health certificates, and IUU certificates by DOF, and food safety certificate by FDA. Thailand electronic certificates are designed to operate the national single window under the Thai Customs Department and can be sent to hubs such as ICC Hub, ASEAN Single Window, or directly with partner countries. I share this slide because it could be a future area for cooperation with Canada. I may not be able to provide deep technical details today, but if Canada is interested, I am happy to connect you with our technical expert for follow-up. And this one we already discussed about the ASEAN-Canada Free Trade Agreement, so I will just keep it. And the last organization, the Thai Food and Drug Administration, the Thai FDA, is responsible for food safety for domestic consumers. The key law that Canadian operators should know is the Food Act. FDA laws include controlling food safety, such as ingredients, labeling, and advertising, inspections, and market surveillance. The FDA also said the FDA is also the organization that's setting the maximum residue limits and promoting food safety awareness for consumers. In addition, FDA is involved in other important notifications, such as notification on production processes, equipment, and labeling for some fresh fruits and vegetables. They also work on irradiated food and food containing toxic residues. For fresh fruit and vegetables, Canadian operators should know that since 2022, the Thai FDA has implemented a surveillance measure for import produce that may contain pesticide residues. The purpose is to reduce cases of residues exceeding standards and protect consumer health. The FDA classifies import fresh produce by list level and has published guidance documents. If Canada is interested, I can provide basic information on this measure. Okay, to summarize, this slide I summarized the overall control system in Thailand is divide responsibility by the product. For fresh foods and vegetables, they are regulated for both export and import by Department of Agriculture. For livestock products, they are regulated for both export and import by Department of Livestock Development, and fishery products are regulated for both export and import by Department of Fisheries. But for the processed food, they are regulated by DOA, DOF, and DLD for the export, while imports are regulated by Thai FDA. This is not all of the detail that can take for the, I mean, it's not a general sorry, you cannot use this slide for the all other product because there are some high risk product and cases where the tests are delegated between Ministry of Public Health and Ministry of Agriculture and Cooperative. So Canada can contact ACFS or contact each of these agencies so that you can make sure that the specific product go directly to the agency that's responsible for control this import and export product. So this is all of my presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sithaket Pratum, for your presentation on overview of Thai competent authorities. At this moment, we would like to open the floor for the questions and all comments. Should you have any question, so please feel free to ask. Yes, please.
Thank you, Kunsita. Your English is very good. I understood the presentation. I appreciate that overview. You talked about many different Thai authorities depending on risk of the product and their specific, livestock versus plant versus other. Can you clarify or add a bit of context about how a lot of that function is coordinated in the Thai government? Because, for example, you said ACFS works on some of the free trade agreement negotiations, and that requires coordinating with many different departments. So how is that function done in the Thai government? Who takes on the role of that coordinating aspect?
In the overall picture, ACFS is the one who coordinates with outside the country and within the country. According to the WTO, we established the SPS committee within the country. ACFS is the secretary of the committee. We hold a meeting every time we need to attend the WTO SPS committee meeting or TBT meeting, and we invite representative from every organization, whether the DLD, DOA, DOF, or FDA. We also invite representative from private sector so that we can discuss the overall picture, what the problem we do we have, and what do we want to achieve for the export of Thai product. And when there is specific technical concern that require the technical people to answer this question, we will coordinate the people outside the country, the CA, to the Thai CA, and they will talk directly. But in some case, like FTA, we have the agreement with the trading partner. ACFS will be the one who hold the meeting. We will be the host, and also when we need to attend a meeting overseas, ACFS also will be the one who go to talk with the trading partners.
Kunsita, thank you very much for excellent presentation. I just have two quick questions. For imported products from other countries, including from Canada, which agency is regulating for GM products, genetically modified products? And the second question is about labeling for imported product. That be Thai FDA, or is that like inter-agency, interministerial function for regulating the labeling for imported food products? Thanks.
For the GM product, this is quite a problem we face when we negotiate with trading partner, because Thailand actually do not have a complete set of law and regulations that govern this kind of product. In the last year, we just published the notification from Ministry of Agriculture that allow DOA, DOF, and DLD to regulate the gene editing product, but we do not yet to have, the set of procedure on how to regulate it. As for the GM product, which is a bigger, it's a wider set of product, not only gene editing product. We have FDA, Thai FDA regulate it, but it's only scope to the food derived from GM product. It's not all of them. It's not include the raw material. It's not include feed. It's not include plant for propagation, and especially for livestock and fishery product, we do not have yet. We don't yet have set up law to do this. And to add more the complication, we have the an agency from the Ministry of Natural Resource that work on the I don't know how to call it, maybe Cartagena Protocol that Thailand is a member. This ministry have been trying to push the law that protect the biodiversity within Thailand for, I think, maybe 7 to 8 years now, but it gets stuck at the lawmaker level. So if you're interested in export product that is GM to Thailand, it better be food derived from GM. That FDA can take care of that. For the second question, I can't remember, sorry. Labeling. Labeling, in Thailand, we use labeling only on the processed food and is under the FDA oversight.
Like, do Thailand have any collaboration with other countries in terms of capacity building or sharing information on how to regulate GM products? And are you interested in working in Canada on that?
Thailand actually a part of the codex that developed the standards related to GM, and part of this standard also mention about the information sharing, and we also have biosecurity warehouse that operate by Ministry of Natural Resource, but generally we do not have yet to have any mechanism that promote the transfer of the information. Actually, in the ASEAN-Canada Free Trade Agreement, I heard that Canada proposed to have this kind of chapter within the trade in goods chapter, and is still under the negotiation, not yet to complete.
If I can add to that, one of the outcomes of the SPS negotiation under the ASEAN-Canada Free Trade Agreement is the inclusion of a ecotech module, which will allow some of that technical collaboration between ASEAN countries and Canada. And so if that's a topic of interest for Thailand, that could be raised under that module as well. And then also, I think it's very, Canada typically, when it negotiates an FTA, I mean, I don't want to speak for the discussion that will happen between Thailand and Canada, as Frank mentioned, but often there is an expectation of an annual SPS committee meeting between the two countries. And I think that allows for a very regular cadence of discussions that are technical in nature under the SPS ambit. So I think those are both opportunities to discuss some of these technical things.
Is there any questions from on-site, online? You can use the raise symbol. มีคำถามอะไรเพิ่มเติมไหมคะจากทางออนไซต์แล้วก็ ผู้รับฟังทางออนไลน์ค่ะ If not any, so please thank you very much once again, Mr. Sitha Ketprathum.